Tuesday, May 20th. This is Mo from Emrite Trading, at May 20th, 2025. A good friend of mine, Dave W., asked me to do a technical analysis of Autodesk, one of my favorite stocks. Short story, right out of college, after getting my mechanical engineering degree, I had a chance to interview with him. Worst decision I ever made was not to go to the interview. Autodesk, back in the early 90s, when I was getting out of college, was about $5, $4 or $5, $6 range. Today, Autodesk is at, let's get it in there, is at nearly $300. That's about 100 bagger from when it first started. So back when I first got into mechanical engineering, it was $3. For those of you who don't know, Autodesk started off as a computer-aided design software company. So they were the ones that replaced all the physical drafters, the guys who had to draw things like buildings and blueprints and stuff like that by hand, got replaced with AutoCAD primarily, and they've been the industry leader since then. Since then they've introduced finite element analysis. They've introduced some AI components, which is what we're seeing right here. This is when physical design started to interact with AI, right about in here. And you can see that Autodesk was one of the first beneficiaries of that whole AI talk, but then everything calmed back down. And what you're looking at now is the Magic Linear Regression Channel, MW, on a weekly time frame. And you see that there's a baseline coming from this low back in 2009 and ending at this low in June of 22, and then past that we have a projection of where the stock could go. And since then, it's really respected this halfway point between the baseline and the outer edges of the channel. So it's been bouncing around between the baseline and this halfway point until finally, bam, it bounced out, came back in, and right now it just bounced back over again. This is again on the weekly chart, and then starting in 2009. Now here's a weekly chart starting in 2016, and it looks almost the same. So whether we're starting in 2009 or 2016, this baseline is really just kind of the same, and it's respecting the same kind of patterns, bouncing between this halfway point between the baseline and the channel edges, and then it finally bounced over, hit back down here, and in this case it's coming back up to the top. So now we're seemingly at a point of inflection if we're judging by this. So let's go to a more current time frame, and let's see what happens when we put the Magic Linear Regression Channel on there. So I'm going to search for that, Magic Linear. There we go. I'm going to set a start time, and I'm going to take it from one low to another low. So I'll take it from this low, so I can get an entire waveform, to this most recent significant low. And the red and green dots are the pivot points, the highs, relative highs and lows in between, but we won't need those for this, so let's turn those off. And then let's extend this so that we can see how far we're going to go. So we're going to extend it, say 100 bars. There we go. And then we're going to add that half band. Actually, let's add the half band and this Fibonacci band. And let's see which one gets respected more. All right, so it looks like the Fibonacci band at the top is getting respected and kind of wavering between the two. And it's more the Fibonacci band at the bottom along with the top or the bottom of this or actually this is where we started from. So in this projection, it looks like we have a baseline that we just went over, which looks a little bit more like this, what is this, from 2009. So this is like a 16-year channel. So this looks a little bit more like that 16-year channel where we're just getting over the baseline. So what does this all mean? It could mean that this baseline could start serving as support. We do have a lower high, and we can look at this trend line here, suggesting that maybe we'll bounce back down, come back down to around here. Let's see, let's draw that up. Bam. So we broke through the baseline, came here. We could potentially hit the baseline again and go up. Or after hitting there, we could bounce back through the baseline, come back to the bottom, all the way down here, which would take us to 238 before coming back up. Now, both of those scenarios are, to me, are pretty likely. The reason why I would skew towards this first scenario is because of this. I'm going to introduce the VWAP with gaps. Oops. Let's call that Multi VWAP from gaps. There we go. So what this does is creates an anchored VWAP from all the largest gaps of the month, of the quarter, and of the year. And this is dating back to 2023. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and remove this channel. There we go. So now what you see here, the green lines are the biggest gaps of a quarter. So those are the biggest moves that happen in this quarter. The blue lines are the biggest moves that happen in a month, and the yellow lines are the biggest gaps that happened in a year. So we are recently just getting above all of those. We just cut through the bottom of this VWAP gap, from this monthly gap, the gap from this quarter, however far back that goes, a gap from this quarter. So this year is, the gap for this year is April 3rd. The biggest gap of the first quarter, that was on January 28th. The biggest gap of last year was on November 27th. So we just blasted back through all those over the past month and a half. And now it's finally starting to turn around. But what those volume weighted average prices mean is the actual value that people have paid, based on what people have paid. This is what the value of the stock is during, at these particular points. So if you look at this biggest gap of last year, this is the average price that people have paid since then, and we're above that. And here's the biggest gap from this year. This is the average price that people have paid since then, and we're above that. And we're above pretty much everything for the past, all the gaps from the past 3 years, and the quarterly, the monthly. To me, that is a very, very bullish sign that we just shot through all those. We may come back and retrace, but I'd have a hard time believing that we're going to crash all the way back through all those lines again before resuming an upward movement. And so that goes more in line with, let's get rid of this, get rid of this. That goes more in line with what we're seeing here with this channel coming back. So this would come back to the top of all those volume weighted average price or anchored VWAPs. And then we'd head higher towards the top of this channel, or we could go halfway up, which would take us to about 3 in the 320s, 325 range. If we go all the way to the top of the channel, that take us to the 345. So I would lean towards this just purely from a technical analysis point of view, with a little bit of fundamentals, because Autodesk is in the prime spot for taking advantage, for a software company to take advantage of all the physical manifestations of AI, because everybody who's going to be designing something that's in the physical space is more than likely going to be using an Autodesk product to do that. And I know that Autodesk has, on a leadership perspective, kept on top of all the biggest changes, and whether it was moving to a subscription model or getting into pretty much every space that you can think of that has to do with actual physical design, whether it's printed circuit boards or finite element analysis when that first came out. So they're a well-managed company, as you can tell, because it's a their stock has gone up 100 to 1 over the past 30 plus years or so. So I am looking at here as the next upward target, but just in general, let's write that down. But just in general, I would say that Autodesk is just on a great company on a great trajectory. So I'm seeing probably about a 340 price target for Autodesk, and let's see, that would be, well, August is usually kind of weak, so if we're lucky, we can get to 340, but definitely I'm seeing 320. And in general, even if we were to come back down all the way here, that would set us up for probably a move here, and then where we're hanging around at just above the 300 mark, and then we'll just keep melting up from there. So I'm looking at Autodesk going from 300 to 340 in the most likely scenario. All right, so that's it. This is again Mo from MRight Trading. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you are interested in any of these indicators, you can find them on TradingView. Look for us at MRight Inc. AMWRIGHTINC. Again, on TradingView. All right, that's a wrap. Thank you.